And in this talk, we'll talk about the lesson I learned from building an Android library called PhotoEditor. So basically, I have divided this talk into four parts. And the first part is how it all started, where I will be discussing about how I started in open source and how one event changed everything for me as a developer. And in the second part, I'll be sharing some lesson from Android perspective and also how to design better APIs. And in the third segment, I'll talk about open source learning, basically how to build things in public, project management, and asynchronous communication. And the fourth thing which I learned, I didn't expect I would learn this way, but when I learned it, it changed my perspective on how software business works. So if you really want to know what it is, please stick to the end of the talk. I'll be revealing that mysterious thing in the end. So this is about a photo editor library with a simple and easy support for image editing using pen, text, filter, emoji, sticker, like we use in Instagram and WhatsApp story and other social media apps. And this is basically built on, it's an Android Java library. So there is no single line of Kotlin code. So I'm sorry for Kotlin fans here. It has around 197,000 download in the span of 4 years, and it's been used spread across different countries, and mostly it's been used in India and United States. And if you look at the GitHub stat, currently it has more than 3,000 stars, 778 folks, 17 people have contributed so far, and as of talking right now, there are 76 open issues and 235 closed ones. So how it all started. So basically, when I did my college degree, for me, it was very hard to find a decent job. So I was around jobless for a year. And as soon as I got an offer for a job, I just put my 100% into it. And I just was focusing solely on 9 to 5 job to learn things as much as quick as possible. But one thing happened here is that since I was too much focused on the 9 to 5 job, I actually didn't know what's happening outside that world, what's happening outside tech apart from the day-to-day job. And then one event changed everything for me. And that event was GDT India, which happened in 2017. So I was fortunate enough to go into this event. And this is where I started to learn about open source and communities and all other bunch of stuff. And since this was happening in Bangalore, in India, which is basically called Silicon Valley of India, everyone was talking about startups and like open source contribution, communities and content creation, everything like that. And I haven't not heard about anything. And I was like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm excited. And then I realized that no, after learning this thing, I want to do something different, and I want to do something which give me a chance to stand out of the crowd. And I was looking for a way to get this opportunity. And when I got back to work, I got a chance to work on a PDF editing image app. So on that day onward, I thought that this is my chance to open source something like editing images and all those things. So from the day one, I started, I create a different module for it so that I can publish that as a library. And when I released first version, I didn't expect the people will use in a different use case. People were using for wallpaper editing, like creating some social stories. And then amazing thing is that most probably the use case was people were using for generating memes. So they were having the templates and they were using this editor library to put some text and create a meme out of it. So that was very interesting use case for me. Now, from Android perspective, I have learned so many things here. And in this section, I'll be talking mostly about how to design better APIs. I just want to be cautious here that I'm not an expert in the API, but one thing for sure is that I have learned a lot about how to design better API by building this library compared to my 9 to 5 day-to-day job. So here are a few learnings from them. First is make the setup easy. Since I got rolled into that project, I was looking for already solved problem. Like I thought this might be already solved by someone else. I don't need to build it from scratch. And I found many other libraries which do the similar stuff. But the problem was that it was very hard to integrate or hard to get started with. For example, this was a photo editor SDK builder from some other library. Uh, this is not a bad API design, but I'm just trying to emphasize that I thought of some better way of doing it. So what is the problem with this builder? It needs a lot of things to get set up and get started. So for example, in order to build this SDK, first on a client side, you need to set a relative layout, which will be a parent view. And then you need to set up an image view, which will be the source image containing where you can do all the editings. And then you need to have a delete view where you just drag and drop and delete something. And then there will be a brush drawing view where you can have a plain canvas where you can draw something on the top of that image. But the issue with this is that since it's also it required a lot of setup, and the chances are there that we are depending a lot on a client side to set up it properly. It might be possible that the client might miss out any of these views or just mess up the order. So it might lead to crashes, and that would be not good way of handling it. So what I did was I did create a custom class photo editor view, which basically extend the relative layout, which was client was trying to set up. And all the things which were required to set up that view, I started doing that inside this photo editor view by doing programmatically, or if I need an XML, I just inflate it and do inside this photo editor. Now the client side become very simple. They just need to use this photo editor view and provide the source image either via XML or using the builder. And if you notice one thing here, that I'm passing photo editor view inside the builder constructor. So now it's become mandatory to create become mandatory to create a builder, and you need to provide the photo editor view. And from client perspective, the chances of getting wrong is very less. So if you compare side by side, you can pretty much see that you can easily get started with the photo editor view, and that was one of the major reason people started using it. It was very simple to get started with, and you should also target most basic use case that people want. People just wanted to have this photo editor view and just get started. Most of them were not requiring having those editing effect. So if you want that, then you can add that part later, and you can have things from the both this world. The second lesson was a program for interface and not implementation. I read this about when I started developing Android application, but I didn't find a use case until I started building libraries. Because before building libraries, I was just working on an app where everything is getting inside one package, one monolithic code. And if you change anything there, you can pretty much handle with compilation error and fix it there. But building a library is a whole different game than having an app. So instead of diving into the definition, I'll just start with an example. So let's say I have a concrete class photo editor, and in that I have a constructor, private constructor photo editor, and then I have a method called add text. And this is one of the APIs, or you can say a feature of photo editor library where you can add a text with a color. And there are a bunch of other features, but I have just omitted out from here. So since the constructor required, now how the client get access to this photo editor? Basically, there is a builder for that, which takes all the property which we need. And at the call of build, it creates this concrete class instance and just return back to the client side. Now, here is the major issue when you are exposing the concrete class in the build method. The first one is the maintenance issue. And by maintenance issue, I means the breaking changes. What do I mean by that? So for example, your client is using your photo editor library, and now it knows about your concrete class called photo editor. Now in the first version, it works fine. But let's say if you want to change something inside photo editor view, then the chances that it will break your client. And since it's a library, you don't know how many places it's being used and you are not aware of that. So you don't know how much impact your change will bring to that. Let's say if you want to rename the class of this photo editor, if you want to change anything inside it or anything which a client is using, it might break it. So you don't want to be in this situation. And apart from maintaining issues, there is implementation issue as well, that you can't change implementation very easily. So let's say you have a photo editor right now, but let's say you have a better way of dealing it. Now you have a photo editor version 2, but you don't want to change the API. You want to keep it same because you don't want to break client code. But if you are exposing the concrete class, you cannot do that, because now if you change it to the V2, then the client code will break and they need to change it all things manually. And we have seen this from a previous experience of like Android migration, that how painful is that to do all those package migration and changing the code on your side. And basically it becomes hard to identify public and private API. And this is my personal thing, because when I was working on photo editor, the class itself, it's a very big class, and there are a bunch of package private and private method which are being used for handling things internally. So when I was changing something in that, it was very hard for me to identify which changes is affecting the public API. So it was very difficult for me to differentiate private and public API. So all these problems can be solved by this rule, like program for interface, not implementation. And what we mean by this is don't expose your concrete class, expose interface. So for example, now I have a concrete class. I'll just change into interface, and all the method which is public to the client, it will be coming to this interface. And then the actual class which does the job of all these things will have the implementation name, and it will implement this photo editor interface, and then we can override all those interface there. So this will make us easy to identify which are the public method and which are the private method in this class. Now, after creating that, in the builder, instead of passing the direct concrete class, we now return an interface and we hide the implementation inside build method. Now we are just creating the method here and just returning the interface here. So what advantage this brings us is that now if we want to swap the implementation, like now if we have a V2, basically we can do this changing it here. And now your client code will remain same. So your client code does not know about your implementation. And if you swap from implementation to V2, your client code will remain same, and it will be easy for the developer to know what's going on behind the scene. Now, whatever I explained can basically be done in a IntelliJ tool, refactoring tool called extract interface. Basically, you can create a class, search for a refactoring, and go for interface extraction. Give your interface name, select the method you want to do it, and just click a refactor. And IntelliJ will take care of all this, creating a method and implementing in that class. So you don't have to do all those things. It will be taken care of by the tool. But it's good to know that how it works under the hood. Now, using Builder for object configuration. So after releasing the initial version, I need to add properties to the existing feature. So at that time, I realized that I can leverage the Builder. So for example, I was having this interface like add text and edit text, where for first version, I was taking the text and color code. Now, some developer are asking me that, what if I want to change font? How can I do that? Then we introduce a method which gives type typeface. So now they can add a font to that text, and basically it's we do a function overloading here. And now then after publishing this, now people started asking, what if I want to add a shadow? What if I want to add a line to the text? What if I want to add a border? Like, if we keep doing like this, then there will be a bunch of override method, and you can see that it does not look good API design, and it's become very hard to maintain. Now, one might suggest that instead of doing all this, just pass the text view. But in case of PhotoEditor, we cannot do that because the text view is created internally inside the library and setting all the touch listener and scaling and rotating it. So taking that from the client might break the PhotoEditor code. Now, what would be the alternate solution? And this is the thing which I learned from other libraries like Retrofit and OKHTTP, that they use Builder for this kind of configuration. So I have a class now called Textile Builder, and I have a bunch of property with text, with shadow, and whatever things we need to have here. And now we have a method called apply style, which is package private and internal to the PhotoEditor library. And what this apply style does is it takes the text view internally and set all the size, color, font, and whatever the property we have provided into this builder. And now, instead of passing this bunch of properties, the API will take the textile builder. And it makes us easy that if we want to add property, we can just directly add it to a builder. So there won't be needing to add extra method here. And on the client side, client can create a text style builder and set the color code and border like this, and pass the edit text, pass this style builder to that edit text. So this is a Java, you can use a builder, but if you are using Kotlin, you can use data class as well. But the advantage of having a builder here is that you can validate all those values before doing anything inside your library. Now, custom view and math. So I started playing around with a custom view, and I need to know some basic math of it. You don't need to know a lot of advanced stuff. If you are doing some advanced stuff, then you need to know all the sign and cost trigonometry happening here. But for just basic stuff, you need to know the basic math on how it works. So for example, in the library, we support different shape like rectangle, circle, and line and freehand. So in order to, and when you touch and drag those things, the size of that shape increase and decrease based on that. So based on that, we need to define a custom view. And in custom view, we override on touch event listener, but you need to understand key three things here. And that is, on touch event, you need to listen to action down. This is basically when you touch on the screen, and action move when you move your finger on the screen, and action up when you're putting your finger up from the screen. So these are the three things you need to listen to in order to draw the shape of the canvas. And this is how, if you want to draw a line, you basically get the start coordinate of it, and then you can use the path to draw the line. I'm not going to explain how all this detailing works, but I'm just trying to give you a brief idea about how a simple math works here in order to create a line. Similarly, think if you want to build a rectangle, you need to draw all the 4 lines in order to have that rectangle. And let's say if you want to have a free hand drawing where you are just drawing with your finger, then you need to use a quad tool, which basically draw a curve between your last point and given point, so that it will give a curve effect and it will feel like you are just drawing with your bare hands. Now, one of the principle I learned from here was open source principle. We have seen this in a solid design principle. Someone is a part of a solid design principle, and which basically says that a code which is open for extension but closed for modification. And when you search about this principle, most probably you will land on an example like shapes. And to be honest, I read those examples, but I never got an opportunity to use in real project. And this was one perfect example where I can use it. So how do I use it? basically we define an interface here, which takes all the common touch listener events like start, move, and stop. And on draw, basically it takes a canvas and the paint you want to draw on. And here we did a little different thing here. We create an abstract class and implement that shape. The reason for having this abstract class here that there were some common functionalities to be needed around all that shapes like touch tolerance level, the rectangle bound we create around that, the tap listener, and all the other things. So it goes around this abstract shape. And this abstract shape is extended by different shape like brush shape, line shape, and rectangle shape, and oval shape, which is currently supported in the app. And this concrete class will have listen to all the start and stop event and do their own math, as we saw earlier, to draw the shape on the canvas. Now, about open source principle, the advantage of doing this is that if we want to add another shape, it's just that we need to extend that abstract class. Like if I want to have a star shape or my custom shape, I just need to extend it, override those methods, and do my own math to draw that shape. So in future, we can give we expose this interface to a client, so client can create their own shape as well. Now on our drawing view, which is our canvas, based on client input, we can create the concrete implementation of brush, line, or oval. And then on touch listener, basically we get that interface instead of concrete class and just pass those values to start, move, and stop share. Now here the touch listener does not know anything about what shape has been drawn. It's just passing the value. But drawing and doing all the calculation will be taken care by the concrete class like line shape and oval shape and so on. Now, using right data structure. Now I know people have a love-hate relationship with data structure and how people are using data structure to evaluate things in an interview. So that is a whole different discussion. I'm not talking about building creating data structure from scratch, but I'm trying to emphasize that find the right data structure which you are trying to implement or feature you are trying to implement in your library. So for one example, in the library, we have undo redo feature. Basically, you draw something on top of each other and you can undo it and redo it. So in the first version of the app, I use list. So basically, there were two lists. One list which keep track of what has already been drawn on the screen, and other things keep cache all the views which has already been drawn, but developer has undo it. So whenever someone calls the undo, I just remove the last item from the currently visible path and put it into a redo path. And similarly for the redo, I just remove the redo path, last redo path, and put it into a drawn path. So that's how the undo redo works. And this is work perfectly fine. There is no issue in it. But as you can see that this is something can be solved by a better data structure. Like here we are putting things on top of each other and popping out from the top, first in, last out kind of a thing. And we already have a data structure for it, which is basically stack. Now, instead of using list, now I started using stack. And stack, this is already available in Java standard library, so we don't need to create anything from scratch. And then I just replace those calculation with just push and pop. Now I need to just pop the last item and push into the redo, and similar I do in the redo function. So now this makes things more cleaner and easy to read. And if someone else is trying to read this code, they can easily understand how this thing works and how I'm using stack to undo it. Now, coming to the third part, these are my open source learning, and it's from an individual perspective, a sole developer working on a side project. And one of the major lessons I learned when I started it was writing tests. If you go and see the library 3 years back, if I want to release a feature, or if I want to fix a bug, I need to do all the manual testing run on the devices, check all the things manually, and then I manually publish it on the Maven or JCenter at that time. And this take a lot of time. And it's really sad that for writing tests is not norm in software industry. Like I have seen in a project where people estimate different hour for writing tests. So apart from like it should be part of a development cycle itself, but they create as a separate task. So after realizing this, I started writing some tests, and it was really hard initially because I haven't done that before, and also this library was more toward UI oriented, and I was not able to find a more use case to do a unit testing. But somehow I started doing it, and I came around 30 to 40% coverage at that time. And the value of this test really shine out when other people started contributing to the project. When they started creating PR, now I can run all the tests and verify that they are not breaking anything in existing code. And I also encourage them to write test on whatever change they are making. And this is the one heuristic I learned from this, is that if you want to check the health of any code base, just look at the tests, how they are. And another learning was from this was perfect is enemy of good. And I think this is kind of a general life philosophy. Like I was looking for perfection in everything. Like I should have a good, perfect API name, the parameters should be passed correctly, naming should be perfect, everything should be perfect. But I realized that this is not good. This is not a good way. When I took around a year to merge a PR, and that PR was not I didn't merge it because that wouldn't look perfect to me, but it was doing a good enough job to solve that problem. But I was not able to see that. But thanks to that contributor for waiting for that 1 year period of time, and I finally merged that into the library. So here I learned two things. One is you need to make progress on something, you need to make compromises on something to make progress. And open source is more about collaboration and people project rather than creating something perfect. As soon as I realized that, my life got really easy. I started seeing code in a different way. And then if I see it solve a problem, I just directly merge it and release it. Everything was going fine. People were contributing it. And then life happened. And this is where I realized the value of time, why people say time is a money, because I was not able to find time after this. And this also it reflected on my contribution. So in 2018, I was able to contribute more, but as you can see, I was not able to find time to do that. Now, this was kind of a moment or a reflection on myself that I need to figure out to minimize the time I spent on this. And the way to do is that automate stuff. Whatever you can find it, you try to automate it. And the first thing which comes for the automation was CI/CD. So as I said before, I was just running all those PR tests manually and checking all those things. It would consuming a lot of time. I need to publish it manually, and then everything was basically manual. Then I started using GitHub Action for that, where whenever a PR is created, you just run all the tests, and also you can check a code coverage there. Also, I wrote a script where if you just push a tag, it will automatically publish your library to JCenter or Maven. Another thing which can be automated was bots. And basically, what problem it was solving that I was having, there was a lot of issues being created, and there was a same back and forth going on between, and I need to have a constant follow up on those boards. And sometimes people just create boards and just went away; they don't come back. So, so I learned this from other project like open source project like Kotlin and Flutter, where they have a board basically which track all the inactive issues, and then they comment on it that if this is inactive, just do a follow up on it and give a warning. And if you don't do anything on that issue for a fixed period of time, it will automatically close that PR. So I found exactly a GitHub action for that, and I did run on every 15 days, and basically it gets the follow up and close the issue if it's not been responded. So this way I was able to save a lot of time uh, doing this automation. And the last one was a template. I mean, this is not basically an automation, but it saves a lot of repetitive tasks. When people create issues, you need to go back and forth. What are the steps to reproduce it? Give me the device detail, how it happened, and all those things. So basically, I created a template for an issue and a PR that you need what are the steps to be produced and all the details which I need anyway to create the issue. So, and GitHub has a way to do it. Just you need to create a markdown file and put it in a template folder, and it will, whenever someone try to create an issue, they can use this template. And since I was running out of time, I was having delays responses. So one thing I want to share here is that, first of all, you don't owe your time to the user. First, because you are doing this on your free time, and basically it's an open source and it's free. But if you want to take a responsibility of maintaining that project, then you need to avoid to have a delay response. Because the problem is that if you have delay response, you might lose context on the issue, what was happened, and all those things. So basically what I personally did to avoid this is that I schedule a time in a day where I spend around 15 to 20 minutes anyway to respond to all this message. And I force myself to reply it. But yeah, definitely there are issues and the PR which doesn't need your attention, so that is fine. But having a schedule and replying on a constant basis has avoid a lot of issues. And when you are working on an open source project, always expect the unexpected, and it can happen in both ways. There can be a bad thing, like people were cloning the app directly to the Play Store and putting it without changing anything, just blindly copying stuff. And I realized that when I was trying to publish my sample app on the Play Store, and it told me that you have already published an application with the same package name. People don't even change the package name. So I need to change my package name in order to publish it. And it does not happen with the PhotoEditor library. There was another Flutter application which I was having what to do, and similar thing happened there, that people directly copy the stuff text by text and pretty much everything. But there is a good side also. I mean, I didn't know people will use this library in an unexpected way. I got this email that someone used this library to edit the t-shirt image, and then they put out for creating that t-shirt with a given images and all those things. So that was interesting. And then some people use this library in some competition, and they got first place because of doing this. So this kind of message really keep me motivated to contribute to open source project back. And this is, I mean, this is the lesson I took myself, but this is the lesson more for the people who are using the open source project. Like, be kind and humble. Basically, there was a senior person who was using an open source library, but he was frustrated because there was a bug. And he said that basically why people create open source project if they have this buggy code. Instead of figuring out what the issue and how can they contribute back to the open source project, they were just trying to criticize the developer who created it. And if you are on the other side of it, just try to avoid this kind of question like, can you please fix this ASAP? This is crap. And my project is stuck because of this issue. I will use a project if you add this X feature, or something like you need some expert advice. So please try to avoid this. Now, coming to the last section of this. So this is, I learned something unexpected, and can you guess what that is? So I'll give you just hint. I mean, this is thing that developer most hate. And no, it's not documentation. It's basically marketing. And I love keynote animation, by the way. So why developer hates this marketing? And I think this meme sums it up, that there's my coding skill, my business idea, but I don't have the marketing skill. And this happened because of a notion which goes around like build great product and people will come. And we are so attached to our craft that we think that once I have built it, people will automatically love. I don't need to go and ask them to use it. My product is so great that people can't avoid using it. In case of going viral and all those things, it works fine. But in most of the cases, I think this doesn't hold true. If you have built something, you need to market it properly. You need to spread the word around that what you have built. Just share it to your friends, your colleague, and whoever you can find, and just ask them to give a feedback on how things are going. Because marketing is a multiplier of a talent, and you can replace talent from a project here. So whatever you do, and if you do a good marketing of it, it will get multiplied. But also remember one thing, that if your talent or project have zero value, then multiplying anything with a zero will give a zero output. So try to create something which has certain value and do a good marketing on top of that. And the first thing you need to think on open source project is README. So try to understand that README is basically your landing page, and people will come and see that thing first. So this is the example of my PhotoEditor library, how the README looks like. I have seen many projects which does a lot of things, like the similar to PhotoEditor library, which does a lot of extra feature and all those things, but people are not using it because there is no proper README or marketing done well. And I have seen a project which provide just bunch of few feature, but has been used a lot because they have proper README and they have marketing done well. Now, social media is both blessing and curse. It depends on how you use it. So if you use for marketing, then it's well and good. So, and social media has enabled us to connect more than billion or million of people at just one touch. So just share your work and do marketing through social media. And also one thing I found was just find some newsletter which basically looking for the libraries or articles and all those things, and try to submit your library there. Since the newsletter will have a good reach, you don't need to find 1,000 people. The newsletter will do for you. So in case of my example, I look for Android Weekly, Kotlin Weekly, and Flutter Weekly was some of the newsletter which I tried, and it worked out pretty well. And last but not the least, talk about in meetups. So whatever you are trying to build, lesson you learn from it, the things you can improve better, or a better way of doing things. This will give you a chance to interact with people, and also you don't know, you might find a maintainer out of those people. And this is also a part of the same thing. Whatever I have learned it using PhotoEditor, I'm just just sharing it in this meetup. And this is the all learning I have to share on a PhotoEditor, which I was building. And at the end, I want to thanks all the contributors to that open source library who have fixes the documentation, who have helped me to set up a CI. People have fixes the bug, and there are also people who added a full new feature to it. So thanks to everyone. And these are the resources, basically the link of my library. I also wrote a blog on 9 things I wish I knew about open source project. And also I'm looking for a maintainer on this library. So thank you. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me at @burhanuddin52.com. That's my handle on all social media. And I usually write on burhanuddin52.com around on mobile related things like Flutter and Android. And also some normal things related to software. So yeah, thank you. And if you have any question, let me know.